Say thank you to Ian and to my friend Rick Horsland and to Charlie Parker. Hope your hand is okay. So as he said, my name is Peter Kent. Some of you may know that I actually grew up in Nanaimo. I did sort of all the perfunctory jobs here. I went to Fairview Elementary, I went to John Barsby, I went to NDSS. I worked at the old gas station that used to be Red Cars gas station down by the Frank Crane Arena. I worked in Harmac, I worked in Dorman Sawmill, I worked in paving companies. So I have a long history here. Obviously I've been away for a while, but I am back. My previous life, about 1980, I left here after working in Kelly Stereo Mart, which some of you may remember was downtown, and I went to Los Angeles. I'll kind of skip over that part because I think some of you know it and it's not really relevant to today's conversation. And so, settled in Squamish, I met my wife, the love of my life, and I have two twin boys that are 9 years old that we had through IVF. And so, I sit on city council right now in Squamish, and I'm making the trips back and forth to honor my commitment to them. I'm not sure that many of you are aware of what's happening in Squamish, but the growth of the bubble in Vancouver has pushed people out into Squamish in alarming rates. We have huge, unprecedented growth in Squamish and the pressures that come with that. Just to give you a couple of ideas of what we've been dealing with. We have about 15,000 doors coming online in the next 15 years there. For a town of 23,000, that's pretty incredible. We just sold the oceanfront property, which is now called Newport Beach, which is 6,500 residences, a new UBC campus. Shenzhen University going in there. We have a waterfront landing, 1,200 apartments going in there. And I was on hand to help with all of the sub-area plans for that. We had great public consultation with all of the people in Squamish. We have the Chikai Fan, which is another 1,200 apartments with affordable housing mixed in with First Nations. So as you can see, there's a lot of growth there. And the takeaways I get from that are the experience I've had in those land sales, in the land development agreements, in the sub-area planning, in the subdivision bylaws, all of those things. So I bring that with me, and I'm illustrating all of this just to give you an idea of what I bring to the table. So coming out of Squamish, a couple of things. We have a great relationship there, but like you guys here in Nanaimo, we had an issue with CAO. We had to replace our CAO when I went in. It was a bit of a rocky time for us. We took a leap of faith and picked someone from staff that we had a history with. And it turned out to be a great choice. She's really got control of staff, but also on a very friendly level, first name basis. And I think it's telling, when I came in to the city hall in Nanaimo to fill out my papers, one of the staff girls took me aside and said, please tell me how it was for you in Squamish. What was your relationship like with staff? And I said, fabulous. I said, we are on a first name basis, we have coffee together all the time. And she said, God, I hope you can bring that here. And I hope I can. And I think that's a key piece. We hear the word governance all the time. It's been bandied around a lot in every election. It's bandied around, but with specifically to Nanaimo given its past history. And so what does governance look like? It comes from the mayor and council for sure. That's the leadership team and the core leadership team within staff. And I just want to touch on staff because I think that's one of the key important pieces is to appreciate and respect staff. And I know that hasn't always been the way it's been in Nanaimo. I've heard from staff that it's been quite a toxic environment, and we know all the key pieces and the players in how that came about. So I won't dwell on that. But for me, I think respecting my staff, because they're who you delegate to as council. I want this done, we need this done. And you have to have that trust and integrity with your staff in order to say, I believe that you can get this done for me on a timely fashion, bring it back to me. In Squamish, I can go knock on a door anytime and say, can I come in and speak to you? No, you're busy? Fine. I've got 5 minutes. What do you think of this? And we need that kind of relationship in order to have good governance. And that is one of the key pieces to good governance for me. And getting along in the chambers should be without saying, should be without question. I mean, it's decorum, and you're elected to act civilly. So that's my governance piece. And another thing I wanted to touch on briefly is taxes, because everybody touts that during election season. And I think there's a lot of platitudes spoken because people say, well, and these are generally candidates without any municipal experience. They come in and say, I'm going to change this. We're going to have 0% tax increase. We're going to do this and this and this. Until you sit down with the CFO and financial staff and pore over those documents yourself, line by line item, and look at what's in reserves and look at what's in capital and all of those items, you have no idea what you can do or cannot do. And so I just wanted to put that out there because I see a lot of candidates saying, we're going to do this and do that, but you don't know if you can do those things. So I don't want to keep you too long. If you want to look at my platform, it's Kent for Nanaimo Council. My resume is there, my objectives are there. But what I do want to say to you is this, I know I don't have all the answers. I am serving in Squamish right now. I cannot take all of the books and all of the manuals and all of the policy that Nanaimo has and go through it right now. But I intend to, I'm a quick learner. And so I want to say to you that I have this open door policy, I intend to keep it here. So if any of you have questions or you want to reach out or you want to just give me some information, I would be available for that. Thank you. If anybody has any questions, please feel free.
Okay, I'll start.
Okay.
When you have people that are elected that aren't part of a group,
Yes.
so they're individual personalities.
Yes.
And how do you get those 8 to agree? Because that's what we struggled with for a while.
Yes, well, and quite true, and I can only go from my past history, what I had in my previous position, or still am. You know, we never agree wholly on any subject from my perspective. But the thing is to have respectful dialogue and to debate those things. Many times in council chambers in Squamish, I have sat there and heard opposing views, and we've gone over things in first reading, second reading, third reading, until we get to the third reading point, and I've actually changed my opinion based on open dialogue and debate. And I think you cannot come in with a closed mind. And I think that's something really key to being a good counselor, is to not shut your mind down and say, no, I'm not gonna go there right at the outset, to be able to be open.
Cool. Charlie?
Peter, tell us, what is your vision for the city? What's your, what are you passionate about in the city and looking to have an impact on?
Well, I'm passionate about bringing back some sort of livability to the downtown core. And this is where I would look to you guys for some input, because I see a lot of derelict and empty lots down there. I know there's a master plan for the oceanfront and the Discovery Center. I won't touch on that right at the moment. Livability to bring back neighborhood planning. I would like to see the OCP. I know it's been 2008, and it's not the bright, shiny object that a lot of politicians like to talk about. But the OCP hasn't been revised since 2008, and I don't know that it accurately reflects the vision that people have for Nanaimo any longer. It's not something that needs to be gutted and redone. There are probably some very solid points in it that are still good, but neighborhood plans could be revised, growth boundaries, all of those things. So that's something I'd like to sit down and go over with staff, and we did that. In fact, we just won an award, a national award for our OCP in Squamish, having completed it in 2 years. So it's being held up now and touted as a model. Anyone else?
Somebody has to ask about homeless people. You must have them in Squamish.
You know, we have homeless in Squamish. We have homeless in Squamish, and surprisingly, we have almost as many as we're in Tent City here. We did a count, and we had 300 in Squamish because of our proximity to Vancouver. Fortunately for us, we had enough sheltering. And we worked with the community partners. Helping Hands is a group there. We just finished building a facility called Under One Roof. Under One Roof is 44 units of supportive housing funded by the BC Housing. And we got a $12 million grant to build that facility in partnership with Helping Hands and several others, Sea to Sky Community Services and a few others. It was a great community, everybody coming together to put this together. It will have the beds, it will have addiction services, it will have mental health services, it will have a kitchen and a laundry downstairs where people can train and get job experience. So that's shovels in the ground next year. We're also looking at a place on Buckley Avenue, which I'm sure you don't know where it is, but that will be 72 units of truly affordable and supportive housing through the Community Housing Fund. So we've been very active on that front. But like everybody, we had to play catch up. But we were very fortunate in having shelters in place, and that's the key piece, right, is to have those shelters for people. I know you don't have a sufficient number of them here, and that's one of the key things that we need to get busy with. There is so much money available right now from this government that we just have to sit down instantly and get our hands out, and if need be, get people down to Victoria to talk to the ministers and say, look, we need these funds, the squeaky wheel. Yes?
What do you think, what is your idea, whose responsibility it is? Municipal, federal, provincial, or federal? Who should be more responsible to solve this problem, your view?
Ideally, it's not a municipal issue.
It's not?
It's not so much a municipal issue. It's federal government needs to step up and help. You cannot download all of this onto municipalities. And I'm gonna digress just for a moment, because the province and the feds are famous for downloading onto municipalities. Well, we're not gonna cover that anymore. Our CMP costs we're not gonna cover anymore. But having now these new pots of funding coming for mental health and for addiction services and for housing is coming out of the Fed and the province. And so they're suddenly realizing that it is their responsibility, and they're stepping up to the plate. Most of it is beyond the scope of a municipality, and in many ways our hands are fettered legally as well. As you know, if you don't have shelter and you can't put them into a shelter, you have to let them camp. That's the law. And it's an unfortunate situation. But having said that, we need to get at those funds that the province and the feds have in order to make those shelters and make those addiction services and help the people that want help. You will never be able to get everybody into that housing. There are people out there who just don't want it and wouldn't take it if you gave it to them. And so for them, you have to move on. You have to go with the people that really need the help and those that have their hands up and are willing to grasp your hand and be pulled in. Yes?
How have your interactions been with the Squamish Band with all these changes?
Fabulous.
Yeah.
We have a great relationship with Squamish Nation. We sit down with them and have Chiefs and Council breakfast once a month. And I would love to bring that here to the Nanaimo Band. It's an interpersonal relationship. We have an intergovernmental accord between us for services, etc. And I know that the one that we have here in Nanaimo needs to be dusted off. It hasn't been touched in quite a while.
Well, it sounds like they're getting the land next to the university.
Yes, I heard that.
So
Yeah.
that's a big thing for us, for our band here in Nanaimo.
It is huge, yeah. And economic development.
Exactly, so.
Yeah, and that's one thing we fostered with Squamish Nation, was we really pushed, the Chikai fan, if you wanna look that up, I mean, I'm trying to think of what the actual name of it is, we call it the Chikai fan development, but it's a First Nations and Bethel Land Corporation, group effort. But the nation got the land dedicated to them, during the Olympics, for their assistance during the Olympics. But unfortunately, the province gave them a piece of land that's in the most dangerous alluvial fan in the world, actually. So now we're looking at, and the province also said, we're not gonna build any mitigation, but you have to mitigate that because it protects the entire community of Brackendale. They never said that until this moment. And so now we're looking at a $60 million earthworks barrier to restrain all of that debris flow. And of course, as a municipality, we cannot fund that, nor can we build it. So we had to work in conjunction with the developer and say, listen, if you build this, great. They said, we'll take it on because our ROI on the investment on the land and the sale of all the houses and et cetera, what's going into the property development, will pay us back for that, and we'll set up a stratification. So that worked, but then now it's come down to who's gonna do the operations of it, who's gonna take care of that berm, should it fail, or should it need to be cleaned out every month, and that's something we're trying to work with the province on now. And we could not even get a place at the table with them, province, until First Nations stepped in, because they're part of the deal. They got us at the table with the province, and finally sat down and said, listen, you guys have to take a hand in this. So it's a key piece in working with the nation, and we honor that every day when we sit down and we open up our agendas and we acknowledge that we're on the traditional territory. Anyone else?
Yeah, one more on the homeless thing, just
Yes.
I'm thinking about it here. How did when we had a chance to get a new assisted living building
Yes.
in Chase River, it was near an elementary school, big brouhaha
Yes.
about that, of course, was voted down. They went to Parksville, I understand they got their own issues there now.
They do.
How do you as a counselor square that up with someone who says, yeah, I support helping homeless people, but do I want it by my, grade 1 school?
Mm-hmm. No, and I would be one of the people that might even say that. I understand that we need to have those housing pieces in place, but there is a location for those. And I think one of the reasons for me, reviewing what I saw about the deal on Cranberry, was that they didn't have a plan B really in place. And coming to the table to the province and the feds for money, you have to have several plans in place. You need to have 4 or 5, not just 1 or 2, but 4 or 5 locations laid out. And you have to say, we can take this type of housing here, we can take this type of housing here, we can't take it there, this type of housing there, because of its proximity to daycares or to schools or whatever. And lay those cards out on the table, and those are municipal lands, or whether you've either donated them or purchased them or whatever. Lay those out on the table to the province and sit down and say, this is what we have now, how can you help us? Where can we get the funding? But you have to be ready. This is the key piece, because the province they're besieged from every angle, and the feds too, for those funds. And if you don't have your ducks in a row, they move on.
Okay, good, thank you. Any other questions, Peter?
No.
No, here we go.